Welcome to Tanakh Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live from Kingsland, Texas, USA, with episode number 54 of Controversial Issues with Rabbi Chaim Coffman. Do Jews believe in demons? That is our topic for today. Welcome back, Rabbi. How are you doing, sir?
Doing great.
Awesome.
Always a pleasure to be here, enjoying the great cold weather, rain, getting a lot of rain here, which we need. So
interesting.
Everything's good.
Good. Okay, so that's where we're headed. So, I mean, just right up front, it's known, most people who have who didn't know before but have been watching all these shows and have done the research knows that hell in Christianity and hell in Judaism are kind of like two different concepts in a way. I mean, they're the same, but they're not, and so with Judaism's different view of hell, I've had people ask me plenty of times, well, if they don't believe hell the way Christians do, do they believe in demons at all? And so that's kind of why we're here right now. So I'm going to pass this off to you and tell us a little bit about it.
Okay. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. So we'll give a little bit of introduction before we get into the topic itself. So in creation, now again, a lot of this has to do with Kabbalah, but the creation itself in general is two parts, right? There's the physical aspect, there's the spiritual aspect, right? Something that's physical, we experience, our senses, etc. The terrestrial, as we would call it, and the astronomical. What's the astronomical? Astronomical is talking about heavenly bodies, talking about stars, talking about planets. Terrestrial is talking about this world. Now, there's a spiritual world, right, which certainly we believe in. And the spiritual world consists of things that obviously are not physical. Now, in the spiritual world, there are two categories. One category is souls. One category is a transcendental being, right? We'll get to that in a second. But a soul, if you go back to Genesis, man is created. God puts the soul, he breathed life into man. What is breathing life in? It's a soul. As we know it, the Aramaic translation, Unkelus over there says, God gave us a ruach memalelo. What's a ruach memalelo? It means a spirit that speaks. Now, animals also speak. We don't understand them. I mean, we haven't played Dr. Dolittle in a while, but we don't understand what the animals say. But we have the ability. What's the difference between man and animal? We have the ability to speak, to reason, to make decisions, make good decisions, bad decisions, etc. So that's the soul. The soul goes into the body, and they have the ability to enter physical bodies, even though they don't really, the soul is enjoying everything going on in the spiritual world, doesn't really want to come down here, right? But God sort of forces the soul into the body. And the body, so there's always a struggle between body and soul. The body wants to go after the body, soul wants to go after the spiritual. So that's one aspect about the soul. A transcendental being is something else. It's a spiritual entity that really isn't meant to be part of a physical body. In other words, sounds like a ghost. That's what it sounds like. It's something that has the ability to do things. It's considered a force, a spiritual force, but it's not associated with a with a physical body. So transcendental beings, just like souls, they exist on different levels. They have different functions. Some of them are more powerful, less powerful, etc. So they have an inherent nature, again, on its level and according to a general scheme. Now, it's interesting. God set up the world, and he's got a lot of messengers, to do all kinds of things. We know stories of angels. Angels came to visit Abraham, right? One to heal him, one to tell him Sarah's going to have a baby, and the third to overthrow Sodom. So you see, angels have different functions. So there's another class, which now we're going to get to sort of our topic here, which is somewhat intermediate, right? It's really intermediate between the spiritual and the physical. In other words, they can't be detected by physical means. In other words, if, a person got like an itch somewhere, it's like, oh, stop it. We don't know what that is. It's like, oh, sorry, it's like Roadrunner, like ran into me, right? So we don't detect them. They're not bound as well by limitation, right? They're not limited, and normal laws in this world don't apply to them, right? They're not detectable. So the question is, are they really called something spiritual, right? Because their essence is not, they're not like an angel. They're different than an angel because they don't have the same qualities, as an angel, even though they are similar, right? There are three similarities. There are three similarities in which, about demons, three in which they are like angels, three, they are like humans, right? How do they represent angels? How are they like angels? They have wings. They fly from one end of the earth to the other. I'd love to do that, right? And they know the future. And how are they like humans? So they're like humans in that they eat, drink, reproduce, and die. So demons themselves, again, they're individual types of separate species, right? They might be considered separate species. They're not totally physical. They're not totally spiritual. They're a mixture, right? They're a hybrid. It's not like we say, well, it goes into the soul. It goes into the body, and it interacts with spiritual things. Trying to get the body to do physical, spiritual things. It's not the case, right? It can do things like humans do. On the other hand, they're spiritual. They have some spiritual entity as well. Now, someone's going to ask the $1 million question and say, okay, very good. Sounds, Kabbalistic and all that. We'll get to what the Talmud says in a second. But how do I know they exist? Is there a source in the Torah? Right? So we do have a source in the Torah. Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 17. Says they would slaughter the demons with power. Right? Gods whom they didn't know. Newcomers recently arrived who your ancestors did not dread. Talking about demons, right? Seemingly, it's talking about demons. King David, also Psalms chapter 106, verse 37, says they sacrificed their sons and daughters to demons, right? So obviously, according to the Torah, according to Tanakh, we have, other sources also, but just mention these two. That definitely refer to demons. Now, Talmud mentions many times mentions about demons. There's stories of a voice being uttered that may have halachic significance, right? If it's heard from a person, maybe it can't be found or could have been suspected by, that it was said by a demon, or a warning to a criminal given by a demon. The Talmud says, is that liable? Is that liable? Is he going to be liable for such a thing? It's also a danger. Talmud speaks, a lot of the rabbis speak about the danger of coming in contact with demons. Demons are destructive. As the Talmud says, they hide in the shade of various trees, touching their stumps. They've ruined buildings. They're in graveyards. They're in a house when one is sleeping alone. Right? Sounds a little bit creepy. They drink from rivers or lakes. They hang out at the end of pipes, water at the end of pipes, all kinds of different things where the Talmud says clear that, these things are demons. There's one statement that says that, if the eye had the power to see demons, no creature could endure them. Right? It sounds pretty scary. Another statement, they're more numerous than we are. Right? They're like a ridge around a field. They're tremendously, numerous, and everyone among us, imagine, this is even worse. I guess you have to look in a mirror. It's like if you write something backwards, you look in a mirror to see what it says, right? So it sounds like this. It's like, there's another statement that every person, surrounding them, you're surrounded by 1,000 demons, right? 1,000 demons on his left, 10,000 on his right, right? The question is, you take that, is that taken literally? No, obviously we can't see that. Obviously, even if they're surrounding us, we're not getting knocked around like sometimes in the times of the Talmud where they had a lot more power. They were, they hung out in different places and came in contact, right? They came in contact with people and caused damage. Actually, really caused havoc. They're responsible for crushing certain lectures, fatigue in the knees, wearing out of clothes. just when you thought your clothes were being worn out, just say, hey, why did my clothes wear out? Oh, it must be demons, right? If you want to see them, there's a statement, let them take the afterbirth of a black she-cat, which is the offspring of a black she-cat, and the first of a firstborn, and roast on the fire, grinded the powder, and let him put it into his eye. I mean, it sounds appetizing. So you take this firstborn, grind it up, take the powder, put it in your eye. I don't know what you're going to see, but according to this, you will definitely see demons. So there are a tremendous amount of references to demons, certainly in the Talmud. Now, the question really is, and we'll get to if people, if everyone agreed that there were demons or not. Seemingly, there are a lot of statements, from the Talmud that certainly show, that there were demons. But there's also a statement that King Solomon, heard secrets from the king of the demons. His name was Ashmedai, right? The Talmud speaks about. So, I mean, King Solomon had contact with animals, and other beings. So you might say maybe he's different or whatever. But the question is, what happened? Even if they did exist at times of the Talmud and they were prevalent, people came in contact with them, they were destructive. So what happened today? Right? We don't come in contact with them. We don't see them. Right? So the powers, we'll say on the dark side, right? There's always, the good side, the dark side. Anyone can tap into the dark side, right? All you have to know is how to do incantations and other things. Very simple, right? Even though God allowed it to be there, causes havoc in other ways. Not something we should do. Even a non-Jew really shouldn't get involved in, sorcery and that type of thing. But in general, why is it that these things that were so destructive, tens of thousands all around us, etc., why don't they have the same power today? Right? So I saw brought down, I don't remember the source where I saw it, but I saw brought down that there was a famous case with the famous Ger Tzedek, Avram ben Avram, in the time of the Vilna Gaon. Right? He was from the Pataki family. He was a count, and he wanted to convert, and his family, wanted to do him in, and someone sort of ratted on him when he was hiding, and they took him to be killed. And the Vilna Gaon actually, we spoke last week about saying God's name to save people, that the Vilna Gaon told him before he was going to get burnt to death, he said, I could save you with using an ineffable name of God. That would save you from this destruction, from being burnt. And he said, no, this is a decree. This is what God wants. I'm going straight underneath, the Kisei HaKavod, underneath God's heavenly throne. Let them do whatever they want to my body. We're good, right? And so he went, and he sanctified God's name, by being burnt to death. Now, like I said, I don't remember the source. I have to find it. I didn't get a chance to look at it. But according to this, that this source says that the impurity in the world, these spiritual forces lessened their power. Their power was greatly diminished by the fact that this Ger Tzedek, this righteous convert, died sanctifying God's name. It shook the world. It was on such a high level that, these other things, sort of lost the power. Now again, so I was gonna say, okay, what's the source for that? I have to go look. I have to go find the source, but I saw at least somewhere that that brought that down, and that's the reason why we don't see them today. It could be also that where they hang out, even if they would, even if we would come in contact with them, so to speak, we're not. Where they hang out, as we mentioned, not places where most people hang out. They're not going to come in contact. You're not going to come in contact with them. So Judaism, seemingly seemingly there are a lot of sources, right? A lot of rabbinic sources, Kabbalistic sources, which we've already spoken, about the fact that you have these spiritual forces, right? The Ramchal in Derech Hashem brings that down, that in the ways of God, he brings all this down, that you have these spiritual forces. Now, what God does with them and how he uses them, that's God's decision, right? But he brings out this distinction that they're sort of half human, half angelic, half spiritual, so to speak. So now that being said, not everyone agreed that demons exist. Now it's hard to say. Now you can say whatever you want, about oral law and about the Talmud and this and that. There are a lot of sources. There are a lot of sources that bring about demons, that say demon did this, demon did that, something else happened and it was a demon. A lot of sources, right? But there were people, great people, that denied it, right? Among them, the Rambam, right? The Rambam seemingly denied the existence of demons. And whatever, a lot of others, as well. It's a little bit hard to understand. You have all these sources, how they look at, these sources. Some say that the Vilna Gaon, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha, Rav Elijah Vilna, declared that when the Rambam said he didn't believe in demons, what did he mean? Right? Did he really mean he didn't believe in demons or their power or whatever? The Vilna Gaon says that the Rambam was led astray. The Rambam was led astray because of the philosophy that he learned. Secular, he was very much influenced by Aristotle in different ways. And that, you see, he wrote the book, The Guide for the Perplexed. The Guide for the Perplexed, written in Arabic, translated into Hebrew, later translated into English. Very hard book to go through, very philosophical book. But the Rambam wrote The Guide for the Perplexed, discussing different things in philosophy that came in contradiction with Jewish philosophy that was taking, that were taking Jewish people away from Judaism because of secular philosophy. So according to Vilna Gaon, that he got caught up in the secular philosophy, so to speak, and denied the existence of demons. It led him astray. Right now, you can look at the Vilna Gaon and say, well, he's sort of chastising the Rambam here, right? And certainly other places the Vilna Gaon spoke extremely highly of the Rambam. It's not like, the Rambam didn't know very much. He was this, he was that. No, he's saying in this case, what happened, right? So the Vilna Gaon spoke so highly of the Rambam, he said he wanted to share his portion of the world to come. But, some say that the Vilna Gaon, they claim he said this, some say, maybe he never said it. It's not, not 100% clear, right? But that is the tradition brought down, that he chastised the Rambam. He definitely chastised the Rambam for holding this. So the Rambam himself says, his commentary to the Mishnah of Avodah Zarah, chapter 4, Mishnah 7, he says that you should know that philosophers do not believe in slumim. What is slumim? It's, I guess, demons, right? They scoff at them, those that think about it, think that they're real, right? These things are great publicity among the pagans, especially among the nation, which is called the Sabians, and their old works dealing with the stars, witchcraft, demons, and soothsayers, right? So seemingly, the Rambam says, like, what in the world are you going to believe about demons? Now, the way some people learn the Rambam is that, it's only rejecting the thing over there. He's talking about speaking with demons. So some say that's what it means. He didn't deny demons per se. Just a question whether you're allowed to, speak to them or not, right? But it does seem, people will say, and I know people will say that, oh, okay, that's a little bit of a stretch. The Rambam seems to say clear, demons aren't real, right? That's what he seems to say. Also, whatever, the different cases in the Rambam, right? That would seem to say that, that he didn't believe, but and there are others also. So that there's an interesting, this is an interesting question in general, whether demons exist. Now you're going to ask, okay, there are a lot of references. Certainly, according to Kabbalah, seems to speak about it. I don't think there's any question about that. So the question is, okay, if they deny it, does that make them a heretic? Right? Should it make them a heretic? Now, it's not one of the 13 principles, obviously. Right? So, some say that, what people saw maybe is a, someone says like a figment of people's imagination. Doesn't make a person a heretic. Right? How they interpret what the Talmud says is, hey, maybe it's an exaggeration, maybe it's just a parable. A lot of the stories in the Talmud itself, that what we call agadata, that are moral stories, something get some sort of moral lesson from. They say you can either learn it in 5 minutes or 5 years. Right? That's how deep it can be. So it could be that these sources that speak about it, if you want to take it literally, you say, okay, Rambam seemingly didn't believe in it. Right? But if you want to look at it as, some sort of parable, or something to explain, whatever, you have to see the text, see the text inside. So in that sense, with others as well, by somebody, Ibn Ezra, for example, one of the great linguistics, commentary on the Torah, etc. Not so clear, what exactly he held, even though it seems that the Torah prohibition of belief in demons, certainly. But whatever, it's a whole question, right? It's a whole question. So it seems like there's a difference of opinion, right? Whether people believe in it or not. Now the question is, does it have any practical, ramifications, for our own life, for our own lives? The Talmud says, they different. They're not real spiritual entities, not physical entities, right? They are to a certain extent. There are, there's a, they're a hybrid, so to speak. There's actually the great rabbi of Baghdad, the Ben Ish Chai, lived about more than 100 years ago. There's the story in the Talmud that talks about Esther being with Achashverosh, right? In the story of Purim. Now, there's an obvious question: if Esther's married to Mordechai, how could she be with Achashverosh? Right? She has to give up her life. It's one of 3 things every Jew has to give up their life for. Right? One of them is immorality. One of them is murder. One of them is idolatry. Right? So even if a person's forced, they have to die. They have to, they're not allowed to do it. So they ask, how could Esther be with him? Right? How could Esther be with Achashverosh? So the Ben Ish Chai is a wild explanation. His explanation is, anytime Achashverosh wanted to be with her, she would leave. She created a demon, right? Looked exactly like her. Unbelievable. Somehow she created a demon. She knew how to create a demon, looked exactly like her, was with Achashverosh. She went back to Mordechai. And then there's the whole question how it works out. She got back, right? The demon left and she got back. Okay, it's you have the whole discussion. But it's an absolutely wild interpretation. That's not simple explanation. You're right, it's not simple explanation, right? But it's extremely difficult, in this case, to understand what the world. There is another explanation, right? How she could be with him, right? But whatever, he the Ben Ish Chai so explains it in this way. So it would seem that there is a seemingly a difference of opinion here, of whether they exist or not. So that's that's one aspect, I guess, of of demons and angels, and all that. Now, even if they're human, right, they have human characteristics, right? So the question is going to be, if you have human, half angel, do you have free will? right? That's a mind-boggling philosophical question. I have to have a few shots of scotch to answer that one, right? Because they're in both worlds. Seemingly, they're in both worlds. If they're in both worlds, and you're more like an angel or part angel, then you really shouldn't have free will, but you're human, right? It could be this. It's the same thing. I mean, we'll make a little bit of a jump here for a human, right? What is a human? Human's made up of body and soul. Now, we have free will to a certain extent, right? We can do what we want. You can choose to listen to me. You can choose not to listen to me. You could, whatever. A Jew has a choice. He wants to eat kosher, doesn't want to eat kosher. We can make any decision we want, right? But the reality is we're sort of like put, where we react to certain things. We're put in certain situations, not necessarily by what we do, right? Some things, yes. Some things it's clear. There are repercussions for my actions, right? And however that manifests itself. But in other ways, a person can be put in a situation you have no control over. One is that you're born. You have no control over that. Who your family is, who your siblings are, who your parents are, extended family, socioeconomic situation, totally not in control, right? That we're totally not in control. Okay, a person grows up, goes to school, other things happen, life experience, but how much free will does a person have? Because in theory, when the soul comes into the body, the soul is so powerful it should destroy the body, right? Because it comes from God's heavenly throne. So what happens? The soul gets trapped in the body, right? It's hard to understand because, let's go back to creation. Adam was given one command. What was the command? Don't eat from the tree. Whatever you do, don't eat from the tree. Now, had Adam listened and not done that, so him living in this world, he would have grown exponentially in a spiritual way. And he would have been pretty much a pure soul in this world, in a body, would have gone into paradise, the Garden of Eden. That's it. End of creation. God destroys the world. Everything's great. That was the purpose of creation. But that obviously it didn't happen, right? God throws him out of the garden, brings death to the world, etc. So there's always this conflict, right? You got this conflict between the spiritual and the physical. The physical takes over. It debases the body, it debases the soul, right? If the spiritual takes over, we go in God's way, great. So then that uplifts us, right? Uplifts the body, uplifts the soul. We raise ourselves to higher spiritual levels. Now in this case, whatever these spiritual force, whatever these demons, whatever they're doing here, whatever their purpose is, they're a hybrid. If they're a hybrid, right, they do things like humans, right? They eat, they drink, right? They use the facilities, they die, they procreate, they have children. I mean, it could be, see a lot of people walking around, they could be demons. You have no idea. I mean, never seen people fly or whatever, but, who knows?
Pretty sure I was married to one once.
Huh?
Pretty sure I was married to one once.
It could be, it could be, but, we have no idea what we're looking at, what people are, etc. But, again, we're not, no one's ever gonna, no one's ever gonna know that. So God has these spiritual forces, whatever they're doing here. It's just, it's just an interesting philosophical thing. It's not like in the Nephilim, everyone brings down fallen angels. You got these angels that were in the, came in human bodies and they sinned, with the women and all that. We're not talking about that, right? We're talking about somebody that's a hybrid. That's a hybrid that, does whatever their purpose, is in this world. We're not talking about an angel who goes into a body and then whatever happens, right? Because then that's a whole discussion. Do they have free will or they don't have free will? But they're in a human body. So they don't, so they have free will. Right? It's not like they're an angel stuck and they say, the angel fell. He wasn't an angelic form. That can't happen according to Judaism. Right? We don't believe in Mr. S. We blame everything on him. He's the one that causes everything. We don't believe in that. There's no such thing as fallen angels. Right? You gotta watch we had a lot of fun with that with the Freemasons, right? On that video on fallen angels. But in this case, the soul goes into the body. Right? When the soul goes into the body, it doesn't have the power that it had. Right? Because it's stuck in the body. The body wants to have to go with the physical. Right? And the soul wants to go, after the spiritual. So that's pretty much, about, demons. Now, there's an interesting thing. Is more like a side thing, but it's still interesting. There's an idea. There's an idea of a dibuk. Now, what is a dibuk? So before we explain what a dibuk is, remember, a person's in this world, Jew or non-Jew, right? Physical and spiritual. And they're going to get judged after 120 years what they did in this world, right? A Jew's going to ask, did you learn my Torah? Were you honest in business? And your whole life flashes before you, see everything you did. God's going to judge it. However he judges it, whatever the punishment's going to be, person goes, you mentioned hell before. Hell, we look at it as a cleansing process. And hopefully there's something left of us after this cleansing process. And we get to go into paradise. We get reward for all the good things that we did in this world. Now, some people are not so lucky. Because what can happen? Most people today are reincarnated souls. How can a person be reincarnated? Some say we're here 3 times, 4 times what our soul's doing here. Right? So we're not, new souls. The soul's probably been here before. But sometimes what God will do is, for whatever reason, either the punishment in hell's not enough, or the rectification, isn't enough. God gives it a chance to come back, the soul to come back another time, to fix up whatever we're supposed to fix up, whatever its mission is, right? In this world, it comes back again. Right now, probably a lot of souls don't want to come back, but if it's got an opportunity to fix itself up, maybe it's an opportunity you can't refuse. So, they're convinced to come back. That being the case, it's good if they go in, God sends it into another body. It's a different body. So whatever it's supposed to do, whatever it's supposed to fix up, it's in that body. Good. Now what happens, there's another thing that can happen when a person dies. For whatever reason, a person, if they do so many serious things and rectification's not going to help, they could be in what we call kafakela. Right? Kafakela, in my language, is like no man's land. It's like, one explanation is, it's like taking a soul and slingshotting it from one end of the world to the other. You know exactly how that works. It's like cannonball from one end of the world to the other. And the reason it's being flung around is because it doesn't have its eternal rest. For whatever reason, it cannot be properly judged. It has to go through other things in order for it to get properly judged. How that works, I can't tell you. But what it means is, if they don't get their eternal rest, what are they doing? They're running for their lives because they're being chased by what we call Malchei Chabola. Malchei Chabola are angels of destruction. Now, angels of destruction, what do they want to do? Exactly that. They want to rip their job is to get this soul and rip it to shreds, right? So the soul is running, but it doesn't have rest. If it had rest and it got its judgment, these angels of destruction have no power, right? Obviously, they can't do anything. So it could happen, and it's not common, right? Let's just make clear, this is not a common thing. But what could happen is that soul could be, slingshot, could be in this world, could be in the other world, back and forth, before whatever it's going to get its eternal rest. And it could be what could transpire is that soul's about to be ripped to shreds. So how can it get away from these angels of destruction? It goes into a body. Right? It goes into a body. How can it go into a body if there's another soul there? It overtakes the soul. Right? However it works, I can't tell you, but it takes over that other soul. In other words, when the person speaks, it's not the way it's going to originally speak. Right? It's not from that person, it's from someone else. Maybe it'll sound like a woman. I don't know. Sound like, who knows what. Sound like you're the disease, right? Whatever. It'll say something that is not normal that this person should have said.
Right.
Right? So there have been stories, again, a handful of stories where you had a soul in a body that wasn't supposed to be there. Now, it could be, the question really is, you have one soul in the body. God puts the soul in the body. How can another soul go in? I mean, it doesn't make sense, right? God should put it in the body. He puts one in, doesn't put two, right? Normally, right? Not by most people, you only have one soul. That's it. So it could be that if someone, let's say, someone's not the most righteous of people, or whatever, and they have sinned or sinned a lot, etc. So they could open themselves up for this to happen. It's not going to happen to a righteous person. Righteous person is not going to happen to. Someone who studies and learns Torah, it's not going to happen to. Right? Even if they sin, it doesn't matter. They're not, we're not talking about somebody, at that level. So there's a story with the Chofetz Chaim, a famous story, with the Chofetz Chaim that, the soul overtook someone's body. This, whatever we call a dibuk, overtook someone's body. So this is where you get into exorcism, so to speak. So they told us, so these rabbis came to this, this person, and this other soul was speaking, and they tell, as the story goes, they tell the soul, listen, you have to get out. The soul's terrified. Because if the soul gets out, is afraid he's going to get, ripped to shreds, whatever that means, by these spiritual forces, by these angels of destruction, we'll call them. Right? So this soul is terrified, doesn't want to leave, but he can't stay in the body. Right? It's running havoc on the person. Right? So he can't do that, but he doesn't want to leave. How do you get it out? That's a good question. How you get it out? So what these rabbis did, it was in the time of the Chofetz Chaim, and Chofetz Chaim was the most righteous person, of that generation. It's interesting. I asked my Rebbe once, was he considered the greatest rabbi of that generation? The greatest rabbi of that generation was Rav Chaim Moser. Rav Chaim Moser Grzinski, Zecher Tzadik Livrocha. May his name be blessed. And so my Rebbe said, the Chofetz Chaim was like the tzaddik of that generation. Right? It was the most righteous in that sense. Right? Maybe not 100% the most learned, whatever, but in any case, he was the most righteous. So these rabbis said is, we are going to bring you the Chofetz Chaim. The Chofetz Chaim is going to come and deal with you. And this soul got terrified like you can't imagine. No, don't bring him to me. Like, just because of his presence. You're not doing anything, you're not saying any incantations, this and that. Chofetz Chaim would come, if he would come, right? The soul doesn't want to be there. It can't, I don't even know how to explain it. The holiness of this person coming in within a few feet of this body with this unwanted soul, like the soul will just explode. It's way too powerful. It's too powerful an experience. Now, how can I explain that in humanistic terms? A little bit difficult. So I'll explain it like this. I've had the opportunity, a number of times to see great rabbinic scholars, right? Torah giants, not run-of-the-mill type rabbis. People 10 times, million times greater than I'll ever be in 10 generations. And when you see them, all you have to do is see their face. Forget what they say, it doesn't matter. You see their face, they're in another planet. It's the Torah that's inside them that raised them, that they have an aura. I mean, I can't explain what it is. I've seen it. It's an unbelievable thing to see. It's like the people are angelic even though they're in human form. Right? It's very, very hard to explain what that is in words. So imagine, okay, this soul's got problems. This soul has a tremendous amount of issues that, especially the fact that it's going to get ripped to shreds, right? But if it comes into contact with someone that's super holy, I mean, really super holy, this soul will like explode. I mean, not literally, but the something like that it can't handle, right? The power, the intensity of the purification of that person in this world, too much. But you're telling me it's a soul in a body. You're right, it's a soul in a body that's been totally corrupted. And the fact that it's been totally corrupted and it can't get its eternal rest, that's bad. Right? Most people are not, are not at that level. Right? Most people, okay, we want to be better, we make mistakes, we want to do the right thing. You're not going to fry like this. This is the worst thing that could happen to a person. Not having eternal rest, not, especially, when it comes to Jews in general, when someone's buried in the ground here in Jerusalem, 24 hours, that's it. Doesn't matter. By hook or by crook, someone dies, within 24 hours, that's the custom, you'll be in the ground. Because when a person dies, and the soul hovers over the body, goes to places where it knows, and all this, and the soul is totally confused. The most important thing is it has to get judged. It has to go up, right? Because if it doesn't, it's totally in flux, doesn't know what to do, right? So I remember I was at a funeral, and they were taking the body out, putting it in the hearse, and I remember there was a rabbi there, very much steeped in Kabbalah. He's like, let him go, just go, get out of the way, let him get buried, because again, I don't know what this means. I'm just explaining what the sources tell us, and that is that when a person dies, it should be buried as quickly as possible, because we can't imagine, what the pain that the soul goes from. Because imagine, the soul's out of the body, soul can't get back in, right? Soul can't get back in. It's totally in flux, doesn't know what to do. It's in a tremendous amount of pain. So the longer the body waits to go in the ground, the more pain, whatever that means, for the soul. Imagine if they let this person linger over for days, where it's not permissible. The soul goes bananas. Imagine if the person gets cremated, doesn't go in the ground. Leave him on the mantle. Here's dad. Got him in a jug. Leave him on the mantle. That has to go in the ground. Now, so even a person's cremated, according to Judaism, you're not allowed to get cremated, right? But a person got cremated, right? At least it should go in the ground. At least it have some sort of burial, not just left in an urn. Right? I can't even, the little that I do know, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine those ashes sitting in that urn in a person's closet or whatever. It's going, not in the ground. It can't get judged. It can't get its true reward or whatever. It can't get fixed up. It's not in the ground. Right? That's the worst thing that can happen to a person. It doesn't get buried. So, not to digress. So when a soul like that, is fighting for its life, literally, in the spiritual world, the worst thing that can happen to it is to come in contact with someone that represents Torah. Someone that upholds the value of Torah. Because somebody like that who's so righteous, too much. It's too much. It's similar in a very small way. It's similar to what secular people will say. Let's say a secular person meets someone very righteous. They can say, oh, he doesn't dress properly. He doesn't this. He doesn't, they'll say things, against the person. Why? First of all, they don't know. They don't know the power of Torah. But second of all, to them, their soul is so corrupt, not necessarily in this case, not so bad, but their soul may be so corrupt it can't stand anything holy. Right? That may be what, part of the process for someone to get fixed up is that, it needs more of that, to get fixed up. But somebody who's corrupt, someone's not going in the ways of Torah, what do people do? They make fun, they scoff, they do all kinds of things, to make fun of spirituality, because spirituality bugs them. It deters them, it bugs them. Why does it bug them? Right? Because they have no connection to it. The soul doesn't want to have any connection to it. So they come in contact with someone that does, something else. They don't want to have anything to do with it. So that was the story with the Chofetz Chaim. The soul fled. Right? That was the end of the story. I didn't finish the story. The soul fled because they heard the Chofetz Chaim was coming. Didn't want to have any part of it. So I'll take my chances with the angels of destruction. I don't want to come in contact with this spirituality. Right? It's too much. Right? It's way too much. There was another story I heard a number of years ago. And it happened in America, somewhere in America, that there was a story of, a similar story where some soul came into the body of someone else. But it wasn't just, how do we get rid of it? How do we get it out? This soul spoke through this person, but it revealed things. Now, you have to understand, the demons also, right? Demons also know the future. They can also know the future. So they know other things that people don't. right? That's actually a scary thing because, if that's true, the Talmud says that they know the future. What would happen if they come into someone's body unexpectedly or unwanted, most likely unwanted? They come into someone's body, and what happens? They start revealing things. The person speaks with that dark voice, right? He speaks with that voice, whatever it is, and it starts saying, oh, I got information. I got information about certain things. Right now, the question is, as the Talmud asks, if you hear a demon say something, can you rely on it? Halachically. They're not giving testimony. Right? He's not a human over here. Right? He's a spirit inside the body. If he's a spirit inside the body, why should we take what he says seriously? Right? One of the things Talmud asks, the whole question. If someone says, oh, it's really a demon, do we listen to it? But in this case, there was a story where it revealed all kinds of things that probably should never have been revealed, or that were whatever. I shouldn't say shouldn't have been revealed, but, it wasn't known. There were a bunch of things not known. And what this spirit did, and if I remember the story correctly, this spirit uprooted a number of marriages. In other words, gave information, I guess other things going on, and some people had to get divorced because of it. They took what it said seriously, and obviously there were repercussions. So that I heard about a long time ago. Can it happen? It can happen. Is it common? Not very. Right? It's hard to imagine. You probably have a handful of cases, right? And probably the last 5,000 years. A handful of cases of something like this. I don't think it's, some of them been, somewhat documented. Some would say, oh, it's a fraud, it didn't exist, this, that, whatever. There are some. I'm not going to say, they're a ton. They're not a ton for sure. Right. But I'm trying to explain how possibly it could happen. Right. And from what I know, it shouldn't happen that often. Because a person today is really not that bad, right? Most people. Okay, there are some people that are really bad, fine, right? But most people not that bad. So this, if they go to Ganem, right, which most people will probably go to hell to get some sort of, rectification, they'll have some portion of the world to come, right? Unless obviously they desecrate Shabbos, they didn't do tshuva, right? So that they may lose the portion of the world to come. Be that as it may, they're not going to be in the other situation. They just might die like a dog and go poof, and that's it. Nothing happens, right? That certainly can happen. They lose their portion of the world to come, but not they're going to be in this situation where they're going to be like scattered all over. They're running for their lives and this and that. There are stories. I have heard of stories of someone, in order to get their true rest. Let's say there's a story of somebody committed suicide. What did they do? They ran in front of a car. Right? Actually, it was here, somewhere in the south. How'd the person die? They ran in front of a car. Right? Got run over. So there are many stories on that same road that many people have said that they're on that road. All of a sudden, they see somebody right in front of them. They try and stop short, and they run them over. You hear like ka-clunk, ka-clunk, ka-clunk underneath the car. Because they saw something in front of them. It all looked like a human body, right, in front of them, and they ended up running it over. They stop, right? They stop short after they already run it over, and they go to check, and there's nobody there. There's no body there. Now, a lot of people have the same exact story. None of them are drunk. None of them are high, right? They saw what they thought was a body. They heard underneath the car. Right? Sounds like a bad Freddy Krueger movie. They heard underneath the car, ka-clunk, 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 where seemingly they ran over somebody. When they went to check to see where the body was, no body, no cat, no nothing. There's nothing there. So I heard, I forget who said it, but somebody who does that, And that's happened over and over and over and over again. So that's part of the punishment that they get. They have to keep reenacting it until God says, okay, I've had enough. Right? Then the person eventually will get their, they'll get judged or whatever, and they'll get their eternal rest. But I can't even imagine that, because the body comes back together and then it gets destroyed again. So how do we know where's the precedent for that? We see by Titus. What did Titus want to do? When he died, he said, burn his body, scatter his ashes all over the 7 seas. Why do you want to do that? Because he did so many terrible things. He says, God's not going to judge me. He won't be able to gather me. Right? He won't be able to judge me. He won't be able to punish me. So what happens? So Talmud says every single day, God gathers his ashes and burns them. Scatters his ashes, does it every single day. So he goes through that every single day, forever. That's his punishment. He thinks he's going to get away with murder, no pun intended. He's going to get away with murder and he's never going to get punished. God's never going to get him because all my ashes are scattered all over the 7 seas. So once he gets burned once, he's dead. Think again. You're not dead. You come back every day to get burned again. Now, you're going to say, okay, how much is the person going to feel? Now, it seems, according to what the Talmud says, this person's coming back alive. God's taking him, putting him back together. He's alive for that however amount of time. Put them back together, human form, and he says, Titus, we're going to go through this again. And he burns him. And he dies. And he scatters him. And he goes through the whole thing over and over and over forever. Now, the punishment's not always like that. Obviously, got to be pretty bad. Got to be pretty bad for that to happen. Usually, a person will get judged, they'll suffer, whatever suffering he goes through, that's it. No one's coming back. No one's coming back to this world. We're not going to be reincarnated again. It's not going to happen. Right? This is it. We're the last run. Right? I think God's happy for me. It's only one last run for Coffman. That's it. We had enough. We had enough of his soul in this world. Finished. So, in that sense, we hope person gets the proper judgment. Gets helped, whatever's going to be, and that's it. First of all, no one ever wants to come back. Second of all, no one wants to be put in these other scenarios. Right? Again, we can't imagine what it is. And we can't imagine what it means to suffer. How does Titus suffer? All right, he's brought back and he dies. Right? But how can a soul suffer? There are stories. There are many stories, people have out-of-body experiences of what they saw, what they experienced, the suffering that souls go through. But you're talking spiritual terms. How does the soul suffer when it's in a spiritual form? The only thing I can say, there was a story I read about somebody came to synagogue on Rosh Hashanah and someone took his seat, and this guy was livid. He was mad. He was rip-roaring mad, and he comes home, eats his meal, goes to sleep. When he goes to sleep, there's judgment. He realizes he's being judged. Right? Good time for Rosh Hashanah to be judged. He's being judged in the heavenly court. When he's being judged in the heavenly court, he sees a big scale. He said, okay, bring out all his mitzvahs. Here's a baskol, here's a heavenly voice. Bring out all his mitzvahs. So all his good mitzvahs come out. Right, some stronger, some weaker. The side goes down. Right, one side of the scale goes way down. Brings out all his mitzvahs, good. Then he says, okay, bring out all his transgressions. I see all these black angels come out, some stronger, some weaker. Right, all the transgressions he did. And the scale goes down. And now the mitzvahs, the angels of the mitzvahs, the angels of the transgression, they're like, you're going to see who's going to be on top. Now, when he sees these angels of destruction, again, this is what he describes. He describes what he's seen. And these angels of destruction want to rip him to shreds. They got their knives, forks. They're ready to carve this guy to shreds. So he goes, are there any mitzvahs? No mitzvahs. Any mitzvahs, anything. This guy's like about to be ripped to shreds. So what does he do? So he says, I'll do anything. I'll take you soaring. He says, I'll suffer. I'll take suffering. So before these black angels get ripped into shreds, what happens? all of a sudden all these loads of mitzvahs come out because of all the suffering he wants to take in this world, and that's it. That's his dream. That's a dream that he has. So when he comes to synagogue the next day, and he sees someone sitting in his seat, this guy's whistling Dixie. This guy's ecstatic. Right? Now again, you want to say the guy's a fraud, the guy's lying, it's a nice story, about judgment. Person can say what they want. Right? But when he's in contact and he sees what these angels are, and he's looking at them and they're willing, to destroy him. It's a famous story. Right? Tell you one last story. Famous story with the Netziv. Famous head of the yeshiva of Volozhin, after Rabbi Chaim of Volozhin. He was a student, rambunctious child, didn't want to learn. Hears his parents say they want to give him an apprentice. At least he should have parnasa, should make a living. So he goes to sleep, he has a dream. He's a kid. Now, in this dream, he's being judged. Now, it's a little bit hard to understand. He's a kid, how can he be judged? He's too young. Whatever, it doesn't matter. Point is, the Netziv tells the story. He sees a big scale. He says, okay, bring out all his mitzvahs. Right? So all his mitzvahs, some better, some worse, this, that. Scale goes way down to bring out his transgressions. Right? See all these black angels come out. He's still feeling pretty good. Scale goes up, but he's still feeling pretty good, even though these black angels look pretty nasty. In the end, all of a sudden he hears a heavenly voice. And the heavenly voice says, okay, bring out all the books he's supposed to write. All of a sudden, these huge volumes come out. Emek Adavar, his commentary on, his future commentary on the Torah. Emek Ashela, other books. He goes, and he got scared out of his mind. Right? He got scared out of his mind. So he says, what's going on? What are these books? And the black angels are ready to destroy him. And he says, what is this? And he says, that's your potential. That's what you should have written. It goes on the side of transgression. Because you're not going to get there. You're totally not going to get there. And boom, the scale breaks. He wakes up. After he wakes up, goes into his parents and was like, Mom, Dad, bring me the Malamed. Bring me my teacher. I'm ready. I am ready to learn. And he became as great as he was. Now, the Netziv tells that story, the famous story. He's the one who told it. Right? So he understood what these spiritual forces were, what these negative angels, these nasty, gnarly angels looked like that wanted to destroy. He explained. He saw it with his own eyes. I mean, whatever, in his dream. Right? It's a very, very scary idea about, what potential is, but it doesn't detract from the fact that you have these spiritual forces going, one against the other, depending on what we do.
Right. Wow. Honestly, I thought you would be done in like 30 minutes. Well, I'm glad you took the hour. I was thinking this. I was delightfully surprised that you actually had so much to talk about.
I always have a lot to talk about. That doesn't mean everybody likes it. You always got what to talk about. Now, the only question is, what's the topic?
Okay, so next week's topic, I decided to pick it for you now so everybody can be excited about it and get their call-in questions ready. But it has to be on this topic. And basically, it's going to be on the new heaven and new earth. Is the earth going to be restored and this is where it's going to be? Or is it like the Christian mindset where it's going to be like up in the clouds somewhere on the third heavens or whatever? So I think
that's like the end of days. What's going to be the end of days?
No. Don't talk about it now. That's for next week. Save something.
No. That's the topic.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, very good. End of days, the Olam Haba, a world to come, And so that's
you don't have time for 1 hour. We got lots to talk about that.
Well, I figured a 12-hour slot might be enough to start the introduction, maybe.
Maybe. We'll see.
Oh, that's too funny.
We'll see if I'm floating on air or I'm walking on water. We'll see.
Every time you say something like a crazy statement, I think of songs that come in my head with those titles or the lyrics in there. Just like you with the Cobra references all the time. It's okay. I don't shop here. Blow the store up. I don't care.
You got it.
All right, man. Well, Rabbi, it's been fun. It's always fun having you here. I thank you so much for tackling all these controversial issues. Yeah. We'll see you next week if everything works out well and time is permitting.
Sounds good. Sounds like a plan.
Hashem willing. And so it'll be discussing heaven and the world to come, basically. My phone is ringing. It's a good time to stop. I don't know who that is though, so I'm gonna decline that call. So I get like 50 or 60 phone calls a day, and I get to where I just want to turn my phone off. It's insane. It's really, really insane.
I get it.
Yes, sir.
Maybe some other spiritual bodies calling you and just transmitting it to a physical phone. You don't know.
Right. Like, what do you mean letting this Chaim Coffman come on here and teaching about me? I'm supposed to be in secret. Just kidding.
It was too bad. Now everyone's gonna know.
Oh my God, that is just too funny. All right, you guys take care. Shalom, shalom, Rabbi. We'll see you next week.
Okay, shalom, shalom.
Okay, take care. Bye.
תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה והכמיהה. אני אתה אתם תמיד כולם ביחד, חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה